Hello and welcome to the Maths Parent Workshop. My name's Mrs. Elliott and I'm the Year Group Lead for Year 2. So our aims for today, we're going to show you how we teach your children a variety of strategies to solve calculations and word problems and to give you ideas and ways that you can help your child at home. So working at expected standard, so here are some of the things that we expect from the children. So by the end of the year, they should be able to partition two-digit numbers into tens and ones or units. So 23 equals 20, add 3. Or add two-digit numbers within 100, for example, 48 plus 35, and can demonstrate their method. So they can show how they work it out. They should be able to use estimation to check that their answer is reasonable, knowing that sort of 48 plus 35 will be less than 100. Subtract mentally a two-digit number from another two-digit number when there's no regrouping required. For example, 74 take away 33. So there's no borrowing of the tens in that, so that's what it means by no regrouping. They should be able to recognise the inverse relationships between addition and subtraction and use this to check calculations and work out missing number problems. For example, something take away 14 equals 28. They should be able to recall and use multiplication and division facts for the 2, 5 and 10 multiplication tables to solve simple problems. So any multiplication work that you can do at home with the children would be fantastic. They should be able to identify a third, a quarter, a half, 2/4 and 3/4. A really useful way of helping the children to understand fractions is to talk about them in real life. So, for example, when cutting a pizza, you could say, well, how would I cut it into halves? How could I cut it into quarters? And try to work out, if someone has 2/4, how much is going to be left, and asking the children that way. They should be able to use different coins to make the same amount. So pupils should be able to work out how many £2 coins are needed to exchange for a £20 note, for instance. They should be able to read scales in divisions of 1s, 2s, 5s and 10s, where all the numbers on the scale is given. For example, reading the temperature on a thermometer or measuring capacities using a measuring jug. Again, these are things that we have in everyday life. So when you're cooking, you could always ask the children, could you measure out 100 mils of water for my recipe? And these are all really good ways for them to be able to achieve these standards. They should be able to read the time on the clock to the nearest 15 minutes. Again, just talking to the children about time at home, talking to them about what the hands mean, and telling them, when they're going to bed, for example, and what the hands will be on, can really help children. They should be able to describe properties of 2D and 3D shapes as well. So it's not just naming the shapes, they've got to describe how many sides or how many vertices, depending on whether it's a 2D or a 3D shape. If they're looking for that working at greater depth, so we're talking about mastery level, children should be able to reason about addition. For example, the sum of 3 odd numbers will always be odd, and be able to explain why that is as well. They should be able to solve more complex missing number problems. For example, 14 plus something, take away 3 is 17. They should be able to determine remainders of given known facts. For instance, 16 divided by 5 will have a remainder of 1, and it's about that being able to reason, well, I know that all the numbers in the 5 times table end in a 5 or a 0, so therefore there will be 1 left over. Children should be able to solve two-step worded problems. That is something that we are working on at the moment as well with the children. And to be able to tell the time in 5-minute intervals. So again, talking about time at home with the children would be fantastic. And reading scales where not all the numbers on the scale are given. So addition. So when we teach addition, we start with a number line. So children may begin using pre-prepared number lines, but they are now moving on to drawing their own number lines. So that's something that they're quite familiar with. Children will be able to add ones, and then tens, ones, and then move on to 3 single-digit numbers. So you can see from this example, so 14 plus 13. So the children would put 14 at the start of the line, then they'd be able to partition the 13 into the 10 and the 3. So they should add the 10 first of all, and then add the 3 ones. Sometimes they might do that independent as a chunk of 3 if they're really confident, but if not, then they will do that in ones. Another way that we teach as a more formal method is we teach children to partition the numbers into tens and ones and then recombine. For example, again with that 14 plus 13, the children would do 10 plus 10 is 20. Then they would do 4 plus 3 is 7. Then they would recombine it at the end. So by doing that, we mean 20 plus 7 equals 27. So here are some questions that are an example of sort of that mastery and that reasoning, so the sort of delving deeper questions. So often children will need to use their knowledge and apply it to these questions. So for example, with the first question, it says fill the circles in with either the less than, more than, or equal to. So they're having to apply not only their knowledge of adding, but also their knowledge of place value and whether they can use less than, more than, and equal to. Children should be able to answer addition questions in a variety of ways. For example, the question at the bottom where it says 4 ones plus 2 ones, where it's worded in that slightly different way. Another question at the bottom, Katie has 12 marbles, Jim has 13 marbles more than Katie. How many marbles do they have altogether? So again, it's about the children being able to pick out those key words so that they know that altogether means add, so they can do that 12 plus 13. Subtraction. So to begin with, we use the same method as counting back in very small chunks like we do in year 1, and this is very similar to addition, but we start at the opposite end of the number line, and then we move on to finding small differences. So to do this, we put the smallest number at the beginning of the number line, which is where all children are at the moment. So we're putting the smallest number at the beginning, and then we're jumping to the number, because it's much easier for children to jump forwards and to find the difference than it is for them to jump backwards. So for example, you can see 42 take away 39. So you put 39 at the beginning, jump 1 to your nearest 10, and then jump 2 to the end, and then they'd add those numbers that are either above or within the jumps. Partitioning method. Again, this is a slightly more formal method that we use. Again, because we don't bridge the tens, you can do this. So we've got 29 take away 10. And then take away the 2 there. And then in the summer term, we'll introduce column method. So it helps with children, if they're really secure then on their number line knowledge, then they should be able to quite easily apply that to column method. So at the start, we'll do it without exchanging, and then towards the end of the summer, we'll look at exchanging the tens. So for example, there with that 84 take away 26, you can see that we've had to make an exchange at the top there. So here's an example of some subtraction mastery and reasoning questions. So here we've got 4 calculations. So the question would be, do they all have the same answer? And again, it's about that children trying to find out why. Another lovely question is, Jasmine has 33 stickers, Ollie has 54 stickers. How many more stickers does Ollie have? What method did you use to solve the problem? So it's trying to get children to think about, well, I know these methods, which one is the most efficient? Multiplication, so for all these methods we encourage children to count in the number that's being applied, for example in the 2s, 3s, 5s or 10s. And the key vocabulary that we use with them is lots of, groups of, multiply and times. And we also show the children that multiplication is the same as repeated addition. So for example, you can see there we've done 2 lots of 4, so that repeated addition will be 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, which equals 8. And we also use arrays, which is a really useful way to show multiplication. And we explore, it doesn't matter whether you've got 2 lots of 4 or 4 lots of 2, and we show the children the different ways that you can draw those arrays, because they know that that would be the same answer. Grouping as well, and drawing pictures is quite a useful one. So for example, you've got 3 sweets in one bag, how many sweets are there in 5 bags? So we'd encourage the children to do 5 bags and then put 3 in each, and then they'd count up like that. Division, so understanding division, sort of sharing and grouping. So they learn this first through visuals, and we tend to relate division to sharing of sweets or of objects to really help embed that concept. So we do these ideas through pictures, drawings, and counters. So for example, here you've got 6 divided by 2 equals 3. So we've got 6 at the top. We've drawn 2 circles for our groups of, and then in each one we've got 3. So grouping as well is a different way that we do it. So children are taught to draw their own groups and share the number of dots equally, and it's important that children understand that each group must be equal. So for example, in that one you'd have 15 divided by 5. They've got 5 circles and then they share the 15 between it. Here's some examples of some multiplication, division, mastery questions again. There's just some nice different examples here. I quite like missing number problems. So for example, 10 equals 5 times something. What could the number in the box be? And then making sort of those links and connections. I've got 30p in my pocket in 5p coins. How many coins do I have? And again, it's then linking that relationship between lots of, and children thinking about whether they need to think about multiplication, division, and then applying it to a concept like money, which is a really good one. Another lovely one we've got here is on a sports day, Tom runs 10 meters 7 times. Which of the calculations do not describe the word problem? And that's a really good one as well. So you've got either add, and then you've got multiply, and then you've got groups of adding as well. So again, it's about getting the children to really think about why it wouldn't be one of those calculations. So things to remember, so at home you can aid your child by using lots of the following, so practicing number bonds. Hit the Button is a really good website that you can use at home to help practice that. Practicing addition and subtraction facts just while you're going in the car or while you're going out somewhere. Practicing multiplication facts as well for the 2s, 5s and 10 times tables. And I would say if you're really trying to push and extend your child, I would look at doing 3s and 4s as well, just to really push them. Talking about maths in real life situations. So that language that you share with your children is really key, and it's integral really to their understanding of the world, and it makes sense to the children as to why we're sort of learning about numbers and why numbers are so important. Helping your child and supporting your child with their maths homework, and again you've seen all the policies that we use in school, so you now have a much clearer understanding of how we teach at DILTS, which is really good. If you have any further questions, I'm more than happy to talk about maths with you, so please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you very much.